right. So I know I said we're going to talk about IRN, and we'll obviously will, but I did a bit more research, and I also want to ask about your story.
Sure.
All right.
My life story?
Yeah, your story.
Or a long one, dude.
I mean, so for context, I had this jujitsu owner that trains jujitsu, not famous, not like 10,000 followers on social media and everything. And I interviewed him about his story, and it's kind of like Sean Rand says, every underdog has a story. It's like you don't have to have a massive following to have a story.
That is true. That is so true. Everyone's got a story, right?
All right, so if you're ready, I'm ready.
I'm ready, brother.
Ken Shelley, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, bro. Thanks for having me.
So I obviously want to get into Alpha Responder Network and what you're doing there, but as I was doing more research, I found you have a bit of an interesting story. So I want to start with that. So where did you grow up? What was your childhood like?
Oh, man. How long you want to keep this podcast?
Oh, we can go 4.5 hours if you want.
Yeah, man. So it is kind of a weird upbringing. Not a bad way, and just kind of an interesting way. I was born in Cambridge, England. My dad was in the Air Force and met my mom there. And then I was there for a couple years, and then we moved to the States. My dad was stationed in all over, dude. Right after England, we moved to Washington, from Washington State to Texas, and all over the place. So my dad was a rancher from New Mexico. His family still are ranchers. And my mom was very posh, very British. And so every other summer, after my dad got out of the Air Force, he got hired on the Continental Airlines at the time. And every other summer, if we weren't in England with family there, we were working on a ranch. So I have a very proper, and when I say proper, it's the British way of life, their lifestyle. So I grew up very proper, but at the same time, I also grew up very American, working on a ranch and stuff like that. So yeah, it's kind of a weird upbringing. If, like I said, if we weren't working on the ranch, we're in England, where anytime we'd go back to England, family would be like, "Why aren't you using a knife to eat?" It was a weird upbringing, but I love it. That I had a great childhood, and grew up with a camera in my hands. Always loved it being around cameras, and yeah, that's kind of my upbringing.
Yeah. So do you think maybe some of this, England to America, was that maybe, do you look at that and see, okay, that helped me in today, or oh, that kind of was a little strange and not helpful because we moved to England, which has one culture, and to America, which has another culture?
It's a tough question, dude. It's funny. My wife will always tell me, I still say things to this day in a very British way, right? Even this morning, I got out of the shower and was like, "Hey, babe, do you mind tossing me that flannel over there?" And I was like, "Oh, I meant washcloth." She still has to correct me and to say American things. It's kind of money. Do I think it affected my upbringing? Probably not. I do recall in elementary, when we moved to the States, kids would actually make fun of me for my accent. I did have an accent for a few years, probably up till about middle school. And supposedly I would come home crying because people were picking on me for my accent. So my mom, and this is according to her, my mom would have to, well, both my parents would have to teach me the American way of saying things. Um, and then I had to develop an accent, things like that, to kind of blend in. Now I wish I still had my accent. So did my wife.
Yeah. So you mentioned that you always loved being around cameras and everything. So let's say high school time, What are you doing and what are you thinking about? Okay, once I graduate high school, this is what I'm going to do.
Sure. Great question. So, started actually really getting into playing with cameras when I was in high school. Took on some of my first professional jobs. I had a mentor who really taught me how to use cameras, but not just cameras, editing. That was a whole different part of the industry I had no idea about. So he really taught me how to edit and things like that. And my passion for film really developed in high school. Um, and I always knew at a young age, even before high school, I'm thinking more around junior high school. I always knew that I was either going to be in film production or I was going to be in law enforcement. Um, so fast forward, right after high school, well, I served a mission for my church at the time. And then right after my mission, I joined the Army to be an MP, military police, 31 Bravo. So um, got a small taste of what it was like to be in law enforcement, enough to realize I didn't want to be in law enforcement. I wanted to be back behind the camera, that I really knew. Um, but going back to when I was a kid, I knew, again, I was either going to be in law enforcement or film. Um, and it's kind of strange. Growing up, I watched a lot of Cox, the show Cox.
Mhm.
Absolutely love that show. It is my favorite, still is one of my favorites to watch. So I knew that one day I was going to be filming with cops, and here I am doing exactly that. It's kind of wild.
Yeah. So how long did you serve as an MP and kind of what was that like? Because you mentioned that you realized, oh, I don't want to be in law enforcement. Um, but then everyone has, they say, oh, I served in the military or as an MP and I don't have a story or anything. And then they start rambling on about everything. And it's like, really?
Yes.
So how long were you in there and kind of what was that like?
My contract was what they call a 3 by 6. So I did 3 years active and then 3 years inactive. So technically, I did 3 years. Well, I guess technically 6 years, but 3 years active as an MP. But it was weird, man. After MP school, once I got to my base and everything, I then quickly tried out to do their drone program, which at the time they didn't even have a job for it, for an MLS. Um, so it's all based off your ASVAB, your PT scores, all that. So I got transitioned really quick into the drone system. So I started flying drones in the Army. Um, just these, they're called the Ravens. It's like a 4 foot wingspan, surveillance only. There's no weapon systems. Um, so started doing that, and we have been my contract, and then again, I was out.
No. So for those who don't know, kind of what does an MP do?
An MP is essentially a cop on a base, right? So
Hmm.
unfortunately, uh, military personnel still need to be policed. um, you still got a lot of young kids who are joining the military. They don't, their head isn't screwed on tight. They're still making mistakes, but not even just kids. I mean, we can go full blood, full bird colonels who are making mistakes. A lot of domestic violence happen on military bases. You name it. So MPs are kind of they're essentially police, but on a military base.
So how would that work? Because you've got maybe this MP, but then you've got this, colonel who's much higher than the MP, but the MP's having to say, "Hey, you're screwing up. Fix this."
Dude, that was always an awkward situation, especially if you pulled them over. They, a lot of the times, they like to pull rank on you and say, hey, I'm this, this guy, uh, you should be pulling over. I'm going to report you to your chain of command. And as an MP, yeah, that scares you because you don't want to lose your job. You don't want to get in trouble, but you're also doing your job. You're supposed to be policing them. No one's above the law, right? So you would still have to write tickets and things like that. And what was always scary is dealing with domestic violence because essentially MPs, they are dealing with trained killers, right? So domestic violence calls were always really scary. You don't know if I mean even on the civilian side with PD and sheriff's offices, domestic violences are always kind of um, the more scarier calls to to take because uh, yeah, you don't know what's going on. A lot of times weapons are involved. And same thing in the military. You're now dealing with people who have trained to kill, right? You know that they have weapons. Um, so it becomes a little more scary.
So yeah, so what was that like for you, and how did that go about? Because you know, as people will go into the military and everything, they're taught, these different things to respect and everything. And then domestic violence calls, you get a call to go over. So why do you think that happens?
Hmm. It's a tough question. Why do I think domestic violence happens, or
Yeah, well, especially with like the rank and file where they're taught, they're supposed to be the role models and the people that respect. And so then how do y'all go about dealing with it? Because these people maybe outrank you, or they they have literally been trained, yes, to kill, to fight and everything, but then to respect everyone else.
sure, yeah, you definitely want to let them know that hey, I'm your brother, or um I'm one of you. Um, you never want to uh I guess escalate the situation. Obviously, you want to be cool, calm, collected, and deal with it as much as you can. Of course, you're always calling your supervisor to help with backup. Never want to, especially domestic violence, never want to be there on your own. Um, but yeah, I guess it was just a combination of working with your leadership to tackle this situation. It always differed based on who we're dealing with, right?
Mm.
If it's someone in a high leadership, then we're probably gonna have backup with us who knows how to tackle that a little better than just a small little E3 or E4, whatever you are.
Hmm. Yeah. So you mentioned that you did 3 years active and then 3 years not active. So once your active years ended, what were you looking at and kind of going for?
Sure. So I went back to film production. That's my bread and butter. That's what I know the most, right? So um, I started a company called Cine 48, a little production company, and yeah, dude, hit the road um, running. I we immediately. So before the army, I had another production company, so I already kind of knew what I was doing, right? After the military, started Cine 48, and we really focused more on TV commercials, documentaries, and films like that. Um, Tried to do some personal project, but that was always tough, especially with how busy we were with the other production stuff that made money. Um, but yeah, immediately got back into production.
Yeah. So what was it like, kind of starting a business? Was there maybe, some credibility and influence, or was it like hitting the ground running? People don't know who you are, so you're just having to try and send as many like cold emails as possible.
Thankfully, I had clients that we had already been working with. I just kind of it was an easy transition to let them know that hey, I started another business. Um, but yeah, being a new company, it's always difficult. You're now going out and doing cold calls, whether that's in person or over the phone. But we really rely on word of mouth in our industry. Um, or referrals, right? So I'll hit up clients and say, "Hey, uh, would you recommend us to any of your to anyone that you know?" We really thrive on uh, conversations like those. Someone to help us with someone else.
Yeah.
New, sorry.
Yeah, so as you're starting up this production company and you're kind of going about it, you know, what's happening in your life? Because obviously now you have like ARN and everything, but you still have Sin 48.
Yep.
So what's what's happening?
Well, ARN didn't start, man, for a while later. Um, Cine 48 was just running on its own. We're doing big projects, big commercials. Um, and then I guess I could transition to how ARN started. So for years and years, we're doing production, full production stuff, right? TV commercials, documentaries, stuff like that. And then I was connected. So my wife, uh, she works with a lady who her husband is really good friends with Sheriff Mark Lamb. His name is James. So James and I became really close friends, and he saw my work. Was like, dude, my best friend Mark Lamb is meeting a new production company to take over. At the time, he was filming with he had Network, American Sheriff Network. So he's like, would you be interested in filming with Mark Lamb? I was like, absolutely. So saw some of the content he's filming, and I was like, yeah, man, I could easily do that. So yeah, uh, James set up a meeting with Mark and I, and sat down with him and kind of ran numbers. Needed to know, what his current production costs were, and see how we can come in and help out. So um, finally got all that figured out, and yeah, next thing we know, we're filming with Sheriff Mark Lamb for his show, American Sheriff Network. And that lasted maybe a few months, and then American Sheriff got bought out by True Blue, I believe it was, who owns To Catch a Predator with Sean, or whatever his name was, Chris Hansen and stuff like that. So fast forward, we're no longer working with Mark Lamb. I'm back to doing our normal production stuff. I get a call from Mark one day, and he's like, "Hey, dude, you want to film a documentary with me?" I was like, "Yeah, absolutely." And so I go to his house. We're talking about the documentary. Turns out that Turning Point USA is the ones who are producing the documentary. So he gets us in touch with Turning Point USA, meet with Charlie Kirk and his CMO, and sit down for a few hours really discussing what they need, what this documentary looks like. And so, yeah, we it was almost just short of a year, but we started filming this documentary about the border crisis. It was called Border Battle, the documentary, and spent a year filming with Mark Lamb, and we were all over the country with different sheriff's offices, police departments, mostly in Texas. Um, but that was a lot of fun, man. Filming that documentary was a lot of fun. Really became really good friends with Sheriff Mark Lamb, and yeah, the rest is kind of history.
Yeah, so where'd you go from there as, Mark Lamb, and then obviously they've got like Fridays with Frank running. Um, and then, Mark Lamb no longer the sheriff and unfortunately lost the race and everything. So where'd y'all go from there?
So there was a point, there was a period of time so we filmed a few documentaries for Turning Point USA, and once those finished up, once they wrapped, again, found ourselves back to normal production, right? Kind of boring corporate videos, something like that. But I was still working with Mark Lamb. So one day I was at Mark's house. We were filming some stuff for his campaign, what he was running for Senate at the time. And after we finished filming, he's like, "Dude, what are you doing right now? What's going on in your life?" I was like, I'm back to doing normal production stuff, and it's not fun. But if I had it my way, I'd be out dealing with law enforcement every day. And he's like, "Well, why don't you want to do that?" I was like, "Oh, okay." He's like, "Dude, start your own YouTube channel. You can go out with my deputies. and then I'll put you in touch with other sheriffs around the country, and you go out and do your own thing. And bro, it was like someone gave me like a golden egg. It's like a light went off in my head. I was like, why haven't I thought about this before? It, I was already filming with law enforcement. I enjoyed it so much. Why didn't I have the thought to start my own, law enforcement channel? So I left his house just grinning from ear to ear, dude. I was like, okay, I'm doing this. If he's giving me the opportunity, I better take it. So, essentially, I went home, started figuring out what the name of the channel was going to be. Everything. Started forming my crew of people who would be interested in filming with law enforcement. Because that right there is actually pretty difficult, if believe it or not, finding people who want to film with law enforcement. Because a lot of people are like, oh, I don't. They either don't like law enforcement or they're afraid to film with law enforcement, right? Because of all the stuff they get into. So I assembled a crew, mostly veterans, who weren't afraid of going out and filming with law enforcement. And it's kind of how it started, dude. Our first few videos were old American Sheriff Network episodes that never aired. Mark gave us the green light to put those out first, and then from there we filmed with Frank, and obviously his videos always go crazy, right? Yeah. So it really put us on the map, and when I say map, we're not like, we don't have hundreds of thousands of subscribers. I think we're only at close to 40,000 subscribers on YouTube. But within a first month, the channel's monetized, which blew me away. And yeah, it just started really taking off from there.
Yeah, so as you're building this out, was there any maybe hesitation? Because we've got all the other different cop YouTube channels, like, Pinal County's channel. There's like Midwest Safety and a bunch of other things. So kind of how were you like, how are we going to make this different than the other channels out there?
It's an excellent question, ma'am. I think what makes us a little more unique than the other channels is, I guess, our editing style. It's kind of like Pinal County's style is kind of just, and it's probably more geared towards YouTube. Their style, right? They put the stuff out there real quick. And Sam does a really good job of creating those videos. Our style is more like, it's kind of more of a documentary. We want to show the action, but also we sit down the deputy and discuss kind of what's going on. We're looking for that human emotion, the human story, right? Why did he pull this car over? Why did he handcuff this person? Stuff like that. We really want to dig deep in the deputy's mind of what was going on, right? And I think that's important for our viewers, but also bridging the gap between law enforcement and civilian people, right? We don't always understand why law enforcement are doing things, why they're upset or why they're angry, why they use this amount of force. We want to change that outlook on policing, on modern policing, and say, hey, not every person in law enforcement is a bad person. They deal with the crappiest people every day. And there's a reason why they have their guard up, because they deal with dangerous people every day, literally every day. That they don't know it. The first time they pull over has a weapon on them, So we want to kind of show, after my law enforcement experience, and also my partners, he had some law enforcement experience. We're just trying to bridge that gap, help people understand why law enforcement act the way they do sometimes. They're not just robots. They are human people. They have families to go back to. And we're just trying to show who the person is behind the badge, essentially. So I think that's what makes us different, to answer your question.
Yeah. So you're kind of flipping the narrative on law enforcement. So I guess, how do you think this narrative of cops are bad and everything came about? And is it by these documentary style videos that we change that narrative?
I think it's a great question. Law enforcement has always been kind of looked down on, right? But certainly after the George Floyd incident and things like that, that really put a bad taste in the public's eye of law enforcement. Um, so after all that happened, I think it's starting to get better. But I certainly hope that our channel is changing that narrative. Um, I see, I don't read all the comments. Most of them are trolls, but I have seen a lot of uh, comments about, "Hey, we really love what you guys are doing." Um, some of the deputy, like one deputy in particular, Deputy Stubblefield, is Navajo County Sheriff's Office. He is an absolute stud. He really shows the human side and how to interact with people, and people love him. People absolutely love him. So I guess to answer your question, I hope our style of this law enforcement content is helping people um to kind of relax around law enforcement. They're not all bad people.
Yeah. So do you ever maybe get any people that are pushing back against you and say, hey, yeah, I get you're trying to flip the narrative of law enforcement, but you're kind of dramatizing it a bit with this music, the flashy lights, the editing and everything. So how do you go about explaining to them, yes, there's to a certain extent that we're editing things and cutting things together, but then this is like actually what they do?
Yes. Um, it's interesting to bring that up because yes, of course we are editing the episodes in a way for it to move along quickly, right? Because we also understand that on YouTube, or just in this generation, people want content quick, right? We're used to getting it really quick. So we have to edit these episodes in a way that gets to the point real quick, or we're losing our audience, right? So we do have to dramatize it a little bit with the music, and we have cut back on the music actually, because a lot of people are like, yeah, cut the music. So we are adding an element of interest to it. We're also making it uh, we're editing in a way that makes it move along quicker. um, is it my favorite editing style? Probably not, but I understand for YouTube, that's how people want it. Now, if we are on a different network, had our own network on TV or something, I think they'd be edited in a lot differently. But yeah, maybe one day.
All right, guys, we're going to get right back to this interview with Kent, but first, I need to tell you about today's first two sponsors. Did you know that 60% of consumers avoid brands with unattractive logos, even if they have good reviews? Well, Resurrection Design Co. helps kingdom minded businesses fix that problem with award winning brand and web design. And right now, Resurrection Design Co. is offering a free website design or redesign if you already have a website to the first two listeners of this podcast who sign up for a brand identity package. When you sign up for a brand identity package, RDC will help you attract your ideal customers and strengthen your credibility in the market. But this offer is only valid for the first two podcast listeners who sign up this month. So if you are interested or just want to know more about the service, head over to resurrectiondesign.co/creator-corner. That's resurrectiondesign.co/creator-corner, and tell Josh I sent you over. Did you have something, whether it was an article, PDF, blog post, or some custom text online, that you were required to read, but you did not want to read it? Well, that is where the Saga Reader app comes in handy, because why read when you can listen? Saga essentially takes articles, blog posts, PDF, or any custom text and turns it into high quality audio. You can simply paste a link, choose a file, and press play from the different voices that Saga has, and it will play back your text to you. You can listen at whatever speed you would like, whether you're the type of person that listens at just normal speed or 2 times speed. You can skip around to hit certain parts of the texts, pause, play, fast forward, whatever you want to do. And Saga works on any device. Now you may be thinking, why use Saga when there's things like Speechify? Well, here's the thing that comes in handy. Saga has plans perfect for anyone. You can get 1.5 million characters, which is around 20 to 25 hours of listening for only $8 a month. You can get 3 million characters, which is 40 to 55 hours of listening for $12 a month. Or you can go full on premium for $16 a month and get 5 million characters, which is around 70 to 90 hours of listening. But if you use my code Creator Corner, you can get that first month for completely free of charge. So head on over to saga-reader.app and use code Creator Corner to let them know I sent you over and to get your first month for completely free. That's saga-reader.app and use code Creator Corner for your first month free.
So you said you kind of have to edit them quick and everything because people want fast-paced content. And have you maybe changed that in recent? Because I notice, you used to have like 8-minute, 10-minute, 15-minute videos. And then I think y'all released one the other day. It was like 30 to 40 minutes long.
That's right, yeah.
So are you trying to shift that to where, okay, we're going to have it more documentary and the narrative just drives it the whole way?
Absolutely. My social media team, they are really good at looking the analytics, seeing where people drop off on YouTube. So yeah, man, we've done a lot of things. We've cut the intro in half, so now it's only like I think 8 seconds. We've added the interviews, which did make it a little longer, but now we're adding not just 1 stop but 2 stops to every episode. So that did lengthen it a little longer. But certainly in the beginning of our episodes, we're doing everything we can to A, make it quick, and B, make it exciting, right? We want to show little tidbits there in that little teaser, something that should hopefully catch people's attention and say, oh, I want to watch this.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you go back and watch, say, our first few episodes, it's a lot different than, say, our episodes today.
Yeah. So you've kind of ridden along with Pinal County and Navajo County. Is there any maybe hope one day of riding along with maybe a fire department or maybe like a city's police department? Or is it we're going to stick to these small, not maybe not small, but less well known? Like people don't think of Pinal County or, Navajo County Sheriff's Office Department. They think of we've got Gilbert Police Department, Mesa PD, Mesa Fire and everything. Is there any hopes of maybe taking people along on their ride?
Absolutely. Which is funny, Elijah, you mentioned Pinal County being a smaller county.
Well, I guess now, no.
Yeah, man, that's wild. They just hit 1 million subscribers on YouTube, and now it's at 1,012,000. I just looked. And not in a competing way. We're not trying to compete against them, but they are by far the #1 law enforcement agency in the entire world to have that many subscribers. Absolutely amazing. But yes, we absolutely want to start riding with police departments. In fact, we're talking Apache Junction right now, Glendale PD, Page PD. The difference between sheriff offices and police departments is, one major difference is the sheriff is elected by the people. He doesn't have to work with the city council. Police departments, the chief police has to report back to a city council, and that city council could be anywhere from 15, 10 people. So
it's much more difficult to get into police departments, is what I'm trying to say. They have a lot more hoops to jump over, whereas sheriffs, they can just say, yeah, come on in.
Mm.
So that's why we mostly ride with sheriff offices, just because it's easy for us to get into. Um, but yeah, like I said, we're getting ready to film with Apache Junction PD, Glendale PD, and then Page PD here pretty soon as well. So, and that's exciting for us because it'll be our first police department we've written.
Yeah. So as you start Alpha Responder Network, you've also got Cine 48. So how do you kind of figure out how much time should I spend on Aaron and then how much time should I spend here? But then I've also got life in the middle of it all.
Dude, the reason why I got where I was asleep last night is exactly that. I'm trying to juggle all of these things. Got our normal production stuff going on, then on top of that ARN. Um, yeah, it's difficult, dude. How I won't lie, it's been an absolute nightmare. Um, but my wife actually is the one who's like, dude, keep going. He's like, don't worry about me. She's like, because I probably seem spacey 24/7. And I feel bad for my wife because she's just great. She's a big supporter of mine. She's the one who's kind of behind the helm most days. Hey, Ken, keep going. You got this. So, um, I owe a lot of respect to her. But yeah, it's difficult, dude. It's difficult. One day I do hope that ARN is kind of the the bread and butter. It's the that's how we're making a living. But it's gonna take time to get there.
Yeah. So as you're going along with, these different deputies and writing with them, and then you also started up the ARN podcast. So kind of what is the hope with the podcast um, in relation to these ride along videos?
Yeah, I think it's just another way to um bridge that gap. We have a lot of these deputies on who are starting to make a name for themselves, not intentionally, right? Like let's use Cooper Stubblefield for an example. Um, a lot of our episodes are with him because not only is he such a great person in real life and be on a film, but um, he gets into a lot of stuff in Pine Talk, and so I think the podcasts are just another way for us to peel back who the deputy is, right? To show that human side. Um, so yeah, hopefully that answers the question. It's just another way for our audience to know who this deputy is, right? Or
Yeah.
know who this sheriff is, or whatever.
Yeah. So you kind of said you're, you know, right along with Cooper or Frank or Mark Lamb or all these different people. What does it kind of look like as you're riding along with them? Do you ride along for the whole shift, or how does that go where you're sitting in their back seat or their front seat and passenger seat and they get a call and you're like, all right, you as a civilian that's just filming them go to this call where either, in one episode there was like a house burning down. So what is that like?
Oh man. Well, I can tell you it's the most exciting thing you can do. There's nothing I have found that gives you that adrenaline rush, right? Um, so yeah, typically I'm in the front seat. Um, my partner, he'll go off with a different deputy, and our shifts are anywhere from 8 to 10 hours. I enjoy the night shifts because all the crazy stuff happens at night, right?
Yeah.
So I'll go out for 10 hours, their entire shift, filming with that deputy. Again, typically I like the night shift because again, a lot more stuff happens at night, but we typically go on till 4 or 6 o'clock in the morning. By then I'm like, I'm dying. Um, but yeah, you're definitely gonna see the most action at night. And as far as what it's like walking up to civilians who are having this situation happen in their lives, right? So here's a good example. just a few weeks ago in Mojave County, there was a situation where it was a domestic violence situation, and everything was happening inside of this house, right? And I always feel weird about going inside someone else's home with a camera. It's just a weird feeling for me because I know if something happened in my life and I call 911, I wouldn't want a camera crew to come in. Like just uncomfortable. So I do put myself in that person's shoes. Um, but on this particular call, this domestic violence where this older lady hit this older man, um, it's like they didn't even care. They were so drunk, they didn't even care that cameras were there. Normally, I look at the deputy, I'm like, hey, do you think I should be filming this? He's like, yeah, of course. They always say yes. Um, but yeah, it does get a little awkward sometimes. Just several months ago, we were down in Casa Grande, and there was a semi that hit this car and killed the people instantly. We were the first ones on scene. Of course, I had my camera. As we're pulling up, I'm like, oh man, these guys are dead for sure. Again, I looked at the deputy. It was Deputy Serrano. I was like, dude, do you think I should film this? He's like, yeah, man. This is real life stuff. This is stuff we're dealing with every day. I was like, that's a good point. It really shows. And although I'm not getting up and zooming into the dead body and stuff, I'm trying to be respectful of the deceased. Um, but it was important for us to film that episode because it shows exactly what law enforcement are dealing with. So to answer your question, sometimes it's awkward for me to go into a house, start filming. It really just depends, especially if there's children involved. I don't like to film that stuff. Um, it just feels icky to me. But certainly if the people are, shouldn't say, if they're acting a fool, then I'm gonna film it.
Yeah. So as you're maybe riding along for 10 hours or so, how do you decide, because you can't just run your camera for 10 hours. So how do you decide when to film, when to not film? Because then who knows, maybe you're, for instance, one camera here overheated. So maybe you don't have enough space. You're swapping out an SD card or, you got to let it cool for a minute and then they get a call right then. So how do you figure out, all right, this, gap we're not going to film in?
Sure. That's an excellent question. Um, Luckily, I better knock on wood. Luckily, I haven't dealt with um, using an entire SD card. The cameras we use are professional camcorders, so they're not, mirrorless cameras that could overheat out in the field, especially during the summer. They're like the worst. But yeah, these professional camcorders can roll all day, although we don't. We start rolling once. So say the deputy is going to do a traffic stop. I will turn on the GoPro and my camera on immediately and hope that, because sometimes these deputies, they're not used to having cameras with them. So sometimes they'll just do things without us being ready, right? So if I'm now at the point where I can look at the deputy and know that he's going to pull over this car or that a phone call came in or whatever. But essentially, yeah, we're turning on the cameras real quick and rolling. And as soon as the situation's done, I stop recording and just let the camera just relax a little bit.
Yeah. So do you ever maybe hope to, let's say they're pulling one person over and you want to capture like what the person did on camera? So do you maybe hit record a little soon because you see, oh, this person's about to do something illegal? And in order to show, in the video, we don't want to just show deputy pulls him over like da da da, pulled you over this and this, and we have no proof of it. Like
Sure.
we have no video of it.
Yes, in an ideal situation, I am rolling on what the person did, but it doesn't unfortunately happen all the time. Sometimes the GoPro, I'll turn on the GoPro first before I turn on my my camcorder. Sometimes the GoPro, like we just had a situation where a couple, what was it, a few weeks ago, hit the GoPro, turned it on as we're pulling over the car. The guy in the car threw out a meth pipe And then as he exited the car, he threw a little bag or map underneath his car. GoPro caught it all, thankfully. I didn't capture that because I'm really more focused on the deputy walking around the car or whatever it may be. Um, so that was a good example of I'm glad that the GoPro was rolling before I was rolling on the camcorder. Um, but yeah, to answer your question, sometimes the offense isn't recorded. Um, and that's where the interviews kind of save us, right? That's where the interviews, hopefully the deputy would be like, yeah, so the reason why we pulled over this vehicle is because blah, blah, blah. We may not actually get it on filmed, but at least it was mentioned in the interview portion.
Yeah. And so kind of riding along, got documentary style videos. Um, do you maybe have like a schedule of releasing them? Because you said you go nights and then you've got this other person that goes and rides along with this different deputy. How long of a turnaround is it usually from we're filming with Frank or Cooper and then it's up on YouTube?
Yeah, great question. I guess it really depends on what we get into.
Mhm.
So we have a backlog right now, thankfully, of a lot of footage. We just rode with La Paz County, and then right after that, we filmed with Mojave County. And dude, we got into some crazy stuff in Mojave County that I'm dying to release. But because we have so many uh, pre-recorded episodes, we want to do things sequentially. Is that the right word? Sequentially?
Maybe.
It doesn't sound right, but um, essentially, we want to release these episodes how they were filmed.
Yeah.
Um, so on average, if we film something that we want to push out immediately, we could probably do it in a week, have it edited and ready to go. But my editors typically take anywhere from 7 to 8 days to really polish up an episode and have it ready. Because what essentially what happens after they edit the episode, I send it off to the sheriff's office, whether I'm working with the PIO or the deputies or the sheriff himself. Every county is different, right? But they also have to approve the episode. We don't put anything out that hasn't been approved. Um, so, and of course, we release episodes every 2 weeks. We've been doing that for probably 6 months now because several months ago, we didn't have a lot of episodes in the bank. We were kind of just so at one point we were releasing an episode every week, and then we had to drop it down to every 2 weeks, which is currently where we're at now. We could go back to a week, but I still feel like we're ready for that because it's a lot more manpower to release an episode every week. And I don't typically like to edit the episodes when other people doing that.
Yeah.
So, did that answer the question? I'm not sure.
Yeah, no, definitely. So you've got, you know, the episodes releasing and you have to send them off and everything. Are you able to share kind of the crazy stuff that went down in the county a couple weeks ago or so, whenever that happened?
Technically not. I'll show my wife some of the footage that we filmed, right? But publicly, I'm not putting out anything. Just because I don't want to breach the contract that we have with the sheriff's office or the agreement, whatever you want to call it. But I certainly, of course, will show my close friends, right? My neighbors, people who I'm really close to, be like, dude, look at this. Look what we got into in Mojave County. But yeah, that that footage, the raw footage especially, will never go out to the public until it's been approved.
Yeah. So you're flipping the narrative. You're riding along with all these deputies. Is ARN something that will hopefully become national at one point where you've got people stationed in, Arizona, Texas, Georgia, Idaho, Montana, whatever that may look like? Or is it we're strictly going to stay in Arizona?
Yeah. That's the goal, bro. We would certainly love, in fact, I already have a guy There's a few in Idaho. They want us to go out and film out there with their sheriff's office. And then in Nashville Police Department are interested in filming like us. And luckily for us, we also have a guide that we know out there who would be great filming the content for us. Um, so the goal is that yes, one day we do want to have um, people available to film content for us in different parts of the country. We're definitely not there yet. Well, I think we're close. We're close to getting there. But I want to make sure that I am out there as well, just to make sure that they're. I've been doing this for a long time, right? And my partner, we've been doing this for a while, so there are going to be certain do's and don'ts when it comes to film with law enforcement. Um, so we want to make sure that if we're having others filming with or for us, we want to make sure that they're doing correctly the way that we need it to be filmed and stuff like that.
Yeah. So as you've kind of looked at your whole life and everything and what you've done, to maybe the younger generation, people in high school looking to maybe join either law enforcement or the military, would you recommend them do that?
Absolutely, 100%. Um, I don't think there's a profession out there that's uh how do I word this? Being in law enforcement is obviously a great profession. Let's see, it's hard work. Um, but it's a very rewarding and very respected um, um, career job. I would absolutely recommend people getting involved with law enforcement, whether that's even if you don't want to become a fully post certified police officer or sheriff's deputy. You can become a posse member, which that's something that I'm actually interested in doing here pretty soon. Is um, knowing that I can't devote all of my time to a career because I've got so many other things going on. I can also become a posse member, which is essentially you're there helping the sheriff's office. Um, but you don't have to, it's not like a full-time job. You go out and do that, whatever they need you to help on your own time. But yeah, to answer your question, man, the military is a great thing to do. If you don't already know what you want to do in life, the military is great, helps you, gives you a lot of discipline. Um, I would say though, if you do join the military, make sure that whatever job you take, or your MOS, or it's MOS in Army, I don't know about the other branches, but whatever job you take or you do in the military, make sure that that job can also transition well once you get out, right?
Mhm.
So for me, I knew that I was going to be a law enforcement one day. So I went in as an MP, hoping that would give me some experience. And then when I got out, then I was going to become a police officer. Well, that didn't happen for me, um, but just make sure that you're getting yourself into something that you can do on the civilian side as well.
Yeah. And so you mentioned earlier about how this narrative of law enforcement and cops specifically, a lot happened with like George Floyd and everything. And I mean, we could get into a whole spiel about that if we want to. Um, but then with like the recent election of Trump and everything, do you think that this shift in this view of law enforcement is going to happen a lot sooner than some might have thought? Or maybe Trump has 4 years, and then if another Democrat gets in, law enforcement's essentially just going to have a bad look the whole time?
Yeah, that's a tough one, man. It's really tough because yeah, if we get another Democrat in office, I think it's the view is the public view on law enforcement. You go back down. I think it's on the rise right now. Since Trump's been in office, we're looking good right now. The public are definitely. It depends on where you're at in the country too, right? in Mojave County, they're always a red state or red county. They love law enforcement out there. I don't know what the climate looks like, say in Spokane, Washington, or excuse me, not Spokane, but even what's that real liberal city in Washington? Portland. Portland is a very liberal city. I don't know how they view law enforcement currently, but I do know that it's starting to be better. It's starting to look better right now. Now, if we can just hold on to that, even if we have a Democrat as a president, my hopes that the law enforcement will still have a good view on them.
Hmm. So, any other final closing thoughts, remarks, anything you want to share coming up?
Man, I want to say thank you for having me on.
Absolutely.
You say there's 17.
Bam.
See, that's awesome. I think at 17, I was still skateboarding and not focused. And I was filming, right? I wasn't doing stuff I love to do, but I didn't have a passion like you do. Um, Mine was more so just going out and filming stupid little skate videos and stuff like that. At 17, you're doing big things, man. So I appreciate you having me on and really trying to figure out who I am and what Airang is all about. So thank you.
I appreciate that. And thank you for coming on the podcast today.